I want to welcome you all. My name is Dr. Kristen French. I am the director of the Center for Education, Equity, and Diversity, and I'm also faculty in elementary education. And it is an honor to welcome you all here tonight to the 17th Annual Educational Law and Social Justice Forum. Woo! And on behalf of the Center for Education, Equity, and Diversity, and all the incredible staff members who are here tonight who made this event possible, I want to welcome you. But I'd like to just quickly identify some of the folks that you might not necessarily know who are behind the scenes, who do a lot of work to make an event like this happen. So I'd like to thank Elaine Mahari. Elaine! And also our very own Taina Tremblay. Next to Taina is Kylie. Kylie is not an employee of SEED, but she might as well be because she supports us all the time. Thank you, Kylie. And our very own program assistant, Linda Spalding, who really we want to thank deeply for this event. Thank you, Linda. And around here, you'll see Nemoya Flint, also Kate Harrison, and Natlai Sandoval. So thank you all in SEED for making this possible. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Lorraine Casperson, Dr. Casperson. And truly, without Dr. Casperson, we wouldn't have 17 educational law and social justice forums. And as the director of SEED, I am so humbled to be mentored by Dr. Casperson, and so grateful that we have opportunities to learn together. And Lorraine really brings a critical lens and a social justice view of education that is so important for all of us. So thank you, Lorraine.
Well, good evening. Welcome to the 17th Annual Educational Law and Social Justice Forum. It's always a delight to co-sponsor an event with Dr. French and also SEED, the staff. Let me take this opportunity to thank all of the staff at SEED and also my editorial assistant back there, Austin Van Kirk, for all the work they've done. We couldn't do it without them. As Kristen mentioned, this is the 17th annual event that we've put on. And the purpose was to try to have a forum where we can discuss the deeper, more significant issues in education. And since 2006, when the Journal of Educational Controversy was first launched, we've been using the forum as a way of, or as an opportunity really, to invite the authors of articles from our most recent issue of the journal to come and talk to you about their article. And I'm really delighted tonight that we have the authors of the article that was published in the winter 2015 issue of the journal, and the title is in your program actually. Let me get the title right for you. The title of their article is Everyone Should Feel So Connected and Safe, Using Parent Action Teams to Reach All Families. And we're delighted to be able to have a real good conversation tonight about the really important work that they've been doing. So let me please welcome all of them to tonight's event. Before we actually introduce our panelists and get started, I'd like to welcome Dr. Dean Francisco Rios, who is going to offer a few welcoming remarks of his own.
Gracias y bienvenido. Es una oportunidad para nosotros esta noche a escuchar las perspectivas y las experiencias que tienen las familias en una comunidad muy cerca de esta universidad, y que también para nosotros es muy importante como una oportunidad de enseñar lo que ellos están tratando de hacer por parte de sus hijos. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm very pleased to be here and to extend my thanks to great panelists who are here to share with us and to provide us an opportunity to listen and learn about the ways in which they're supporting their children. You know, as many of you probably know, in education and probably in the United States more broadly, there's been a dominant narrative around deficit. We think about it as a deficit orientation or a deficit way of thinking. And, you know, it was pretty clear before in terms of the ways that we talked about people's heads and that they were measuring them to kind of scientifically to try to identify the ways in which some people were less smart than other people, and then to put that into some kind of racial classification. We've gotten a little bit more sophisticated than that, but that deficit ideology continues to exist and continues to be with us. And I wanted to share with you two of my very own experiences with this that was really kind of hit home in a really direct way, how deficit thinking plays into the work of teachers and schools. And the first was when I was a teacher education faculty member in California, and I had just come out of a room and the bell had just rung, and they had at that time were segregating all the English language learners in a side of the in a wing of the building. And I remember walking out, and we used the term, or we were using the term limited English proficient, right? Again, focusing on what you're not, you're limited in your English proficiency. So I just came out and I heard these two teachers said, hurry up, the bell just rang. We don't want to get run over by the lepers. And I thought, wow, do you really feel that way about these kids? And really, should you be here as a teacher if that's the way that you feel? So I remember going back and talking with my colleagues, and we were trying to think about other ways we could think about limited English proficient kids, and we started thinking about PEP, potentially English proficient, but then we thought they'd call them peppers, and we didn't want to go there. So, but it was a way in which even thinking about labeling and the ways that we describe people and categories of people oftentimes really represent that deficit thinking. And then when I first got to the University of Wyoming, where I was at, I was invited to go to an elementary school, and I was invited by a teacher who supposedly was a really good advocate on behalf of the Latino families in that Cheyenne community. And I remember going and we were talking about it. She was talking about the struggles that they had that the school was having with getting meaningful parent involvement in the ways that they typically and traditionally think of parent involvement. And I remember at one point she said, you know, these kids come to us with no language. And I thought, really, no language at all? They don't say anything. But really what she meant was they don't come speaking English. Well, fortunately, about 10 or 12 years ago, there was a really important book that came out by a woman named Tara Yoso, where she asked a different kind of question. And she wasn't asking the question in terms of how do Latino parents support kids in traditional ways, but she said, well, how do you? Let me ask it as a question. How do parents come to support kids around education? And she created this using a community cultural wealth framework. She created a really nice model of identifying all the ways in which Latino parents do, in fact, value education and support kids, but not in the most traditional ways. This, I think, is one other example of bringing together a group of people who support each other, who work with each other, who learn from each other, who live and commune and witness with each other the everyday struggles and the everyday hopes and dreams that the Latino community has. And we're really especially proud that you're all here, and especially proud that it represents all levels of the school district, but also the community and the families in which we serve. Otra vez, yo quiero dar mis más auténtico gracias a los padres, a nuestros visitantes, a estar aquí con nosotros y a todo que ustedes van a compartir con nosotros, porque nosotros necesitamos aprender sus experiencias y sus perspectivas. Thank you all, panelists, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm so glad you're all here.
Thank you, Dean Rios. I do have a quick announcement, and this is for students who are in Elementary Ed 370. If you have not picked up your incredible 3-2-1 handout, you have a fantastic assignment to do during this incredible panel. So please do so if you haven't already. It's in the front, and enjoy.
Well, this is the format we're going to use this evening to provide a context for the work that the panel has been engaged in. I'm going to ask Susan Donnelly to come and talk about some of her work. As you may know, this is part of a larger partnership between the Woodring College and the Washington School in Mount Vernon. It was the result of a grant that was awarded by the state legislature. And so Susan's going to talk a little bit about that larger context, and then we're going to hand it over to John Korsmo, who is going to introduce the panel. And what we would like to do is to treat this more like a conversation among people. So if you, again, if you want to come up a little bit closer so that you can feel like you're part of a conversation, I think maybe the panel would appreciate that. So let me mention that Susan Donnelly is the co-coordinator for the grant and is also the co-editor for the current issue of the journal. And it gives me really an opportunity to thank you, Susan, for everything you've done for this issue. You made it possible. So thanks so much.
How do I minimize this? I want to. No, not the video. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hello, bienvenido. I've been learning Spanish a little bit. So as Lorraine said, I am going to give some background, an overview of the partnership. It will be very brief because we really want time to hear from the people on the panel, but it will give you a bit of an overview and how this work fits into the whole partnership. This is the website that we put together about the partnership when we started, and I'm going to go to as Lorraine said, so the partnership is a result of funding from the state legislature. They passed a bill in 2012 to commit funds to support 3 partnerships in the state. One is in Seattle, one is in Spokane, and this is the 3rd. The project here is being led by Dr. Joanne Carney, who's over there, and Bill Nutting, who is the principal of the school. Andrea Clancy, who is on the panel, and myself are co-coordinators of, Andrea works on the side of the school, and I work on behalf of the university. And in addition, some other people who are part of it, David Carroll here from the university, Marcia Riddle-Bully, Marilyn Chu, who is not here, and quite a few of the teachers and community members are on an advisory team that help lead the whole project. The major goals of the project, how do I scroll on this thing? Oh, I have to do that. It doesn't just, okay. So we put together, there's a lot of information. If you want more information about the website, going to this site, you could read all of this stuff, but I am not going to go all over it. Where are the goals? So The legislature wanted these projects to tackle two major goals. And one was to close the opportunity gap and improve student learning in the school for the children. And the other was to develop teacher education programs that will prepare candidates to meet the needs of all students in schools. These are huge goals. And we have been addressing them in a number of ways. But these are the kinds of things that schools and universities say that they are doing all the time. And there's a lot of good intention, a lot of hard work that goes into it, but there's still all kinds of data to show that we're still not doing a great job of it. And not being as successful as we would like to be. So this funding has given us the opportunity and actually a mandate to figure out better ways to achieve these goals. And we're working on it through 4 critical strands, as you can see here. So student achievement, how can instructional and assessment practices be enhanced to better meet the needs of all learners, especially English language learners and those living in poverty? Another one is family engagement. How can teacher education programs, in collaboration with school partners, better prepare teachers to engage families in support of their children's academic success? And then we have 2 strands under teacher preparation and recruitment. How can we better prepare teachers, and how can we recruit more teachers from the communities that these children come from? So we're working in kind of 4 big areas, and in each of those areas, we've got quite a few things going on. Initially, we were given a planning year during which we conducted a comprehensive needs assessment to look at all areas, collect data, and to help us make decisions about what to focus on. And then we were to write an innovation and success plan for 5 years of work. That plan was approved by the legislature in 2013. So we're now nearing the end of our 3rd year working together, including that planning year. So we had 1 planning year. This is our 2nd year of implementing the plan. And hopefully the legislature will give us continued funding, and we'll have 3 more years of working together. So we're really kind of in the middle of all of that work. Just to give you I'm used to a Mac. So this page summarizes the innovation and success plan. All of the things that we have said we will work on doing, and we are not going to talk about all of them, but it will just give you an idea that we are doing a lot of things. Yes? You agree? Yes. And it does look like we're doing a lot of things, but a lot of different things, but they actually overlap a lot and support each other. And if they didn't, we wouldn't be able to do so much. This evening, you're going to hear about a number of the family engagement activities, so that's one of the 4 major strands that we are working on. And Ann Jones and John Korsmo have been instrumental in facilitating that work with us, and they will introduce the members of the panel once we get going. But just before they begin, I want to thank all of them, and especially the parents, for taking an evening away from your families and traveling up here to talk with us this evening. What this remarkable group is doing really has the power to impact education far beyond the walls of this one school and far beyond this university. And this is the first chance that we are going to hear publicly from them what they're working on. They have been working together as a small group, developing relationships in very unique ways for schools and universities. And so this is really the first time that anybody but the people on the panel are going to hear firsthand what they've been working on. We've been hearing through John about a lot of it, and it's been very exciting, so we really wanted to hear firsthand. And so their willingness to share their process with us and to let us videotape it is wonderful. It's a great gift to us. And I don't know many people who really enjoy talking in front of groups of people. It's not me. So we really appreciate your courage, your bravery for doing this, and for sharing with us. And I really believe that what we are going to hear tonight will be valuable in helping all of us think more deeply about family engagement, what it can mean, and what it can make possible in schools. Thank you so much. Oh, should I do the video?
Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, actually. Thank you. Hello? Can you all hear me? Okay, now you can hear me, I'm told. So my name is John Corsgo. Thank you all for being here. I'm not going to say a whole lot at the moment, other than it's been my privilege to be able to work with this group of folks here that are in front of you, and sort of point out what I think some of us might think of as counter to what we've already heard, which is, I think at this point, we feel like it's the most natural thing in the world to have relationships with one another and within schools with teachers. However, it's not all that common. And so it's natural because we're humans and we want to have connections with one another, but it's not necessarily common. And so it's been a real pleasure to start to build common. So what I'm going to do is real briefly ask Bill to give you a little bit of information about the school, just to set the context. Just going to be a little bit of brief stuff so that you have an idea of what Washington School is like for those of you who have never been there. And then we're going to, like Lorraine mentioned, treat this as a conversation. Because we thought, when we started talking about this and we contemplated, wow, do we want to take this opportunity or not? It was a little bit daunting. And we realized we have such rich conversations, we would just simply invite you all to be a part of them. And so I have a series of questions that I'll ask the panelists, and we'll be able to respond. And then at the end, we'll have a time for question and answer. So first I'm going to introduce Bill Nutting, the principal of the school, and then I will introduce the rest of the panel, and we'll just jump right in.
Great. Thanks, John. It is a privilege to be here. I would guess that we are probably equally excited and nervous. Usually, this group meets on a Tuesday or Wednesday night in the staff room at Washington School with a couple of boxes of pizza in front of us, and this is a little bit of a different setting for us. I do remember John said that we were being videotaped, but when you're here, it's a little bit different feeling. So let me briefly describe Washington School to you. We're one of 6 elementary schools in Mount Vernon. We serve about 400 students. Those students are about 2/3 Latino-Latina students and about 1/3 Caucasian. Of our Latino-Latina students, about a third, actually about a half of them, or a third of the school, are eligible for the transitional bilingual program. About 80% of our kids, a little over 80% of our kids, are eligible for the free reduced price lunch program, which is a proxy for the poverty level of our school. That's a fairly significantly high percentage. Currently, we are working with our 3rd cohort of student teachers from Woodring as a part of the CSIS grant that Susan shared information with you about. And in addition to the work that we're involved with mentoring fabulous interns, we also have a number of initiatives underway at Washington School, and she scrolled you down the list, right? So one of those initiatives that's really, really important to us, and obviously the reason why we're here tonight, is our family engagement efforts. Washington School has great kids, and we have great families that are part of our school community. And we have an amazing collection of staff people that want to work with the kids in our building, both from an educational perspective and with attitudes of care and support. We've experienced some really cool successes. We have some student achievement data that outperforms what you might predict our demographics would lead to. An example of that recently is the school was awarded a Washington State Achievement Award for the progress our English language learner students have made over the past 3 years. However, I would be the first to tell you that we have not arrived. We are just working hard to try to figure out how to best serve our students. And we're so fortunate to be involved with the partnership here at Western and benefit from the faculty that have come alongside our work and become our partners and friends, working with the kids who are in our care. I think it would be helpful for you to hear a little bit about the origins of our family outreach effort. And that really began with a home visiting initiative. So I'm going to ask Ann Jones to share some information about that with you, because that's a nice way to transition into the parent action team, which eventually resulted from that home visiting effort. When we started this, Ann was the ESL teacher in our building. Since she has transitioned to a district level position where she's helping the lessons learned and the successes learned or experienced at Washington spread to the other schools in Mount Vernon with similar kinds of family outreach efforts. So, Ann, if you'd be so kind, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so it's kind of fun because I'm seeing a lot of intern faces that we've been connecting with, and so some of this is redundant to for some of you, but for those of you who have not heard about our family visits, about 3 years ago when we started this work with the grant, we were really looking for innovative ways to reach our families. And so part of that was doing a lot of research and then forming groups within the community, so former students, parents, and community members, to then ask them, what do you think about us going into your home? So that was, research-based, but also we wanted that to come from our community as well. And then we worked with our staff and found out what their needs were about going into the homes of our families. So it was kind of a two-prong effort. We really wanted to make this to be a successful process for our families and also successful for our teachers. Our teachers were learning about the families and all these assets and wealth of knowledge our parents bring in. At the same time, we were connecting these relationships with the parents by going into their home, asking them one simple question: what are your hopes and dreams for your child? And then how can we, as a school, support those? And I will say, we asked parents who would like, it was a voluntary, so no one was forced through this process, nor were the teachers forced. But the conversations we have, I can specifically remember the 2 visits to Veronica's house, and I specifically could tell you everything we talked about at Miguel's house both times. They were some of the most rich experiences I'd ever had as a teacher. So I won't tell you all the nitty-gritty of how we put that together, but the process of really working with staff to think about, we're going to visit and get to know our families and humanize this process of education to get to know people for who they are and get their voice into the school. And then we've established these amazing relationships along the way. These are my friends. I'm not a teacher, and in these situations, we're not principals. We are all friends and colleagues on a human side through this process. Do you want me to tell a little bit more about it, or? How about we do this? I've set the tone for what the family visits were, and then if you have questions along the way, you can ask me. How about that?
Thanks a lot. So now you have a little bit of a backdrop.
And, you know, something that we've learned is that we all share the common love for children. We're all parents, and we all are hoping for the best for our kids. Every one of us and in every situation and in every day of our lives, and that's a commonality that's been very important for us. And real briefly, just to introduce folks who are sitting here, and then we'll begin the conversation. We have a couple of visitors with us today who are not generally a part of our parent team, but they're helping us with some translation and interpreting when necessary. So we have Giselle on the end down there. And to her left is Veronica, who's one of our members. And then we have Eldred, who's also helping. He's a student here as well, who's helping us out. He's getting some shout-outs in the back, I see. We have Miguel, who's a part of the team. And then we have Anne and Stacy, and you met Bill and Andrea and another Anne and myself, John. And so we have been meeting for over a year now, actually, as often as we can. And I almost brought pizza tonight just to make us feel good. So I'm going to throw a softball question out there for us, something that we've often pondered. And by the way, while we're talking, I'm going to also be showing you some slides, some photos, just so that you don't have to look at me, or that we don't have to worry that you're looking at us so much. And I should say that this is part of a participatory action research effort. And that's really an emancipating type of a research, and it's very empowering, and it's about engaging with the people who are quote-unquote being studied. And in this case, we're co-inquirers. We're trying to figure out how to make improvements in the school. This particular type of involvement works really well in community development as well as in school enhancement and so on. So the first question that I'll throw out there, hey, there's some pizza boxes, what do you know? The first question I would like to throw out for anybody is simply, what have you personally gained from your experience in the past year of our meeting together? Does anybody want to take that one? Sure. What have any of you personally gained from our time together?
Personally, what I feel like I've gained is, first and foremost, a relationship with Veronica and Miguel, which would never have happened if it weren't for this parent action team, which is unfortunate to say, but just reality, I think, that, and from that, then even more relationships in the Hispanic community there. So I think that's the most important thing that I've gained, is more friends. I mean, more people for my kids to be friends with, and yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would you mind holding the microphone? And
bueno, para mí, pues a lo mejor es diferente que para ella, porque yo soy latino. Entonces para nosotros es un poco más difícil acercarnos a las escuelas.
It's a little bit more difficult for us to get access to the school
por el idioma.
because of the language.
Entonces ahí se necesitan también los maestros como para que hagan su parte también como
So then we need the teachers so that they can do their part and we can do our part.
like ¿cómo se dice? Como tratar de hacer como lo que se hace cada 3 meses, cada 6 meses, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Conferencias?
Las conferencias.
Ujú.
Try to do the conferences.
Conferencias de padres, o pues más seguido para que ellos también vean al
So to try to do these conferences a little bit more often.
o otra forma de acercarse más con uno,
It's another form for us to get closer to them.
porque a veces uno nada más deja a los niños, los deja uno ahí en la puerta de la escuela y ellos se meten.
Because sometimes we just leave Sometimes we just leave the students, our kids, at the door, and then we
ya se va uno, pum, y uno nunca mira al maestro.
And we never see the teacher.
Entonces, si los maestros son listos, ellos van a hacer la forma de cómo acercar a los
And if the teachers are smart, they'll find a way to get closer
con los papás.
with the parents.
De alguna forma se tiene que ver, y es lo que estamos trabajando también ahorita, ellos en su grupo.
¿Cómo dijo?
Yo pienso que es lo que ellos están haciendo en el grupo que estamos ahorita.
And I think this is what they're trying to create with this initiative.
Y lo que yo he aprendido ahí en el grupo con ellos, con las visitas de padre,
And what I learned in these visits,
que sí funciona eso.
that it
Porque
does work.
ellos tratan de acercarse con la familia.
Because they
ahí en
try
la
to get
escuela.
closer to the families at the schools.
Y pues yo me siento muy bien porque yo me familiaricé con mucha gente ahí.
And I feel really well because I can communicate with many and meet many new people.
El inglés a veces no se necesita,
English is sometimes not even needed.
porque cualquiera puede decir hola, adiós.
So anyone can say hi, hello.
Es solamente un idioma para decir adiós.
There's only one language to say hello.
Entonces ya conozco yo a muchos ahí.
And that's how I've met many of them. I know a lot of them.
Ya donde quiera que los miro, adiós, adiós. Y es lo que se necesita, pues, un poco también de los maestros.
And so all there is needs a little bit more from the teachers.
Yo pienso que ellos están haciendo un buen trabajo en esto,
And I think they're doing a very good job in this.
porque pues yo me siento muy confortable cuando voy a la escuela y me siento como en mi casa, yo entro, abro la puerta, y
I feel at home when I'm in school.
abro la puerta, entro, llevo a mi niño y...
I just open the door and I'm inside. I'm one of the children.
Te les digo adiós y ya me salgo y me voy a mi trabajo.
And then I say goodbye and then I leave and I go to my job.
Pero yo pienso que es todo lo que tengo que decir por ahorita. Muchas cosas que puedo decir,
There's a lot of things I can say, but I think that's about it.
pero puede tenerme toda la tarde. Mejor yo
But then
creo
I'd
que
be
ya.
here all day.
Thank you. Gracias. Bill wants to add upon that, too.
I noticed, thank you. I guess it's a thank you.
I
I noticed part of what I was supposed to talk about on the slide, which was behind me, had to do with why family visits, and I think I can build off of some of Miguel's comments. And I said that our parent community at Washington is very, very supportive of us and very supportive of education. That support may look different than some of us might envision it, or different than how some of us might have thought about what parent support should look like in, say, traditional ways, if there is such a thing as a traditional way. And part of the conversation that faculty here and staff in our school spent time on is really it's our responsibility to figure out how to do a better job of reaching out to our parents so that the support that exists can tap into the school more easily. And so the family visits that Ann shared was our first step in that regard, to try to learn how we could better partner with our parents. The parent action team is a model that again isn't perfected, but it's a model that we're happy to hold up for you and say there are some things here that we think everyone should be thinking about that represent some different approaches to reaching out to families and creating different relationships and different interactions that aren't normally found in schools. And with a little bit of effort, we're getting great reward. I think our parents feel differently about school, and we see that in how our kids interact with us at school. It has affected our climate, and we can talk about some data even related to that at some point during our time with you tonight. So maybe that helps frame a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish in terms of thinking about our outreach efforts in some different ways.
Does anyone else want to respond to the question of what you're gaining from your time? How about any thoughts of what what your own children are gaining from your involvement.
Yes, my daughter, mi hija,
My daughter,
se siente más, ¿cómo se dice? Más cómoda en la escuela
my daughter feels more comfortable at school,
y conoce a todo el personal también casi.
and she knows all personnel in the school.
Y siempre me dice lo que pasa en la escuela porque pues siempre voy a la escuela con ella y sabe que estoy ahí.
She talks to me a lot about what happens in school since I'm always there.
Y casi sé todo lo que hay y lo que pasa porque ella me habla, me dice.
And I know almost everything of what goes
De
on in
su
school.
clase. Y pues ella se siente muy bien, pues más tengo una ahí en la escuela ahorita.
And so she feels really, really good in school.
Hablando de eso, mañana ella tiene una cita con el dentista y le digo que agarre el día para que esté bien, pero no quiere, ella se quiere ir para atrás a la escuela.
And tomorrow she's supposed to have a dentist appointment, but she doesn't want to go because she wants to be in school.
Bueno, pero la voy a llevar para atrás a la escuela.
But I am going to take her back to school.
Pues eso es lo que, por eso sí está bien que lo que se hace, porque eso hace que los niños se sientan más bien en la escuela, porque miran a uno que también va ahí.
So this is why this is good involvement, because
Porque los niños se sienten confortables, porque lo que
the
uno les
children feel comfortable in school.
porque lo que uno les enseña a los niños ellos van a aprender.
Because what we're going to teach our children, they are going to learn at home.
Yeah, the other day, I don't want to do that anymore. The other day, I just go in drive my car. My kid is 2 years old. I sit in the front seat. I speed. I don't. No se puede hacer eso, escupir para afuera. Entonces yo escupí, pero mi niño chiquito, tiene 2 años, también quiso hacer lo mismo. Escupió el vidrio, le dije, no. Y ya no lo vuelvo a hacer.
So the other day, I was in the car and I spat out the window and I told my son not to do it, but he wanted to do it.
Just, no, it's not right. So, es un ejemplo de que ellos aprenden todo.
And that's just an example.
Y pues sí, se siente muy bien en la escuela, la niña.
Yeah, but my daughter's doing very well in school.
Yo estoy hablando un poco nervioso.
I'm a little nervous.
Ya.
Hola, yo estoy nerviosa, tengo mis manos así como sudadas. Es que es primera vez y como tenía como que decir, ay, no voy a venir, y ya me dice la secretaria de la escuela, dice, no, tienes que ir, ya te apuntaste. Pero me da mucho gusto. Ay, es que estoy un poco nerviosa.
I'm a little nervous. My hands are all sweaty. I was telling the superintendent that I didn't want to be here, but she told me that you had to be here.
Yo soy como voluntaria de la escuela de lectura.
I'm a volunteer for the School of Reading lecture.
Ajá. De clases en español para que los niños no se les olvide el español.
Of Spanish classes so that the kids don't forget their Spanish.
Porque pues muchos niños se les olvida el español y en la escuela pues es puro inglés.
Because for many students, they forget their Spanish because school is all in English.
Pero por mí me gustaría aprender inglés.
But I would like to learn how to speak English.
Ya. Y a mí me da mucho gusto estar en el grupo de aquí de nosotros, porque somos de nosotros.
I'm very happy to be in this group with all of us.
Y pues gracias por invitarme a ellos, por estar aquí en el grupo, aunque siempre estoy ahí en la escuela.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me into this group, even though I'm already always at school.
Aunque a veces mi esposo me dice, Verónica, ya pareces como una estudiante, porque siempre andas, ya pareces como ponerte tu faldita de esos como escuelas privadas, ya, de uniforme.
Her husband sometimes tells her, Veronica, you just need to put on an uniform. You look like you're like one of the students in there.
Pero a mí me gusta estar mucho ayudando ahí en la escuela.
But I really like it. I really like to be helping in the school.
Es lo que yo puedo. No sé.
It's what I can do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk. Okay, my daughter loves school. My daughter loves school. She wanted to come tonight. She's 8 years old. You know, she loves Miguel's daughter. She looks forward to every meeting. The family fun nights that we do on Thursday night. I mean, she'd have to be like throwing up in bed sick before she'd miss those. She sees people from school all around town, and she's so happy to embrace people of all nationalities, all ages. She's met her, outside of second grade. She's in second grade. She's met fifth graders, third graders, fourth graders, and she's so happy to meet these friends and their siblings that she can. In Mount Vernon, it's not very big. You can see people, Chuck E. Cheese, the tulip fields, everywhere you go, and she's so happy to see all the people. She's so happy to be recognized by the staff. And she loves school. She doesn't want to miss a minute of it. She loves the staff, her classmates, Miguel's daughter.
Yeah, they are really good friends.
And just to elaborate on that, and this whole thing here, to outreach to all parents and for if we could reach every parent, excuse me, I don't speak well like this, but I'll try to get my point across that. What we experience here now, our kids know one another, go to birthday parties. That's something, as a parent, you don't just let your child go to somebody's house that you have never met their parent, So for children, this is so important because they want to be able to be with these kids that they're going to grow up with. This is their community. And to start young, to be able to have that community and then keep it, maintain it, and it will just give them a greater strength of community, and it just makes a better place. And I think that starting that at a school age, so this kind of group of, the more people we can bring in, the more parents we can reach, and then I can meet and you can meet. That's a better opportunity for our children to be able to get closer with those children.
So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on Veronica's story as an observer. So when I first met Veronica 3 years ago, we were visiting her home, and I believe there were like 8 of us that all piled into her home, and she was so hospitable and invited us all in. And I think we stayed for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, I remember. There were 2 cars, and it was an amazing experience. But as a teacher in that building, to get to watch her grow into this leader that other parents look up to, it has been phenomenal. She knows this, but when she's not there, we call her Mama. She is the Mama of the school. So we very rarely call her Veronica. She's Mama Mondragon, because she is a mother to us in a sense of a leader. And one of the most incredible things was she and her husband invited me and my children into her home, and my kids were ecstatic because they have a beautiful yard to play in, and she took us to see her goats and all sorts of fabulous experiences. But she shared a little bit about her process, about what it was like the first few times to enter school and not know who speaks Spanish to support her, and finding her children's classrooms and navigating the system. And to now, when you watch her walk in, everyone knows her face. The teacher of her first grade daughter asked her to lead small reading groups. So when she's explaining teaching, she is teaching a small reading group at the literacy level of the students in the classroom in Spanish. So I've had the opportunity to actually watch that go on in the classroom, and it's phenomenal. She's a natural teacher. So to have a volunteer like that in the classroom and utilize her assets, which is she speaks and reads fluently in Spanish, and we're utilizing her skills in the school now, it's a very beautiful process. 3 years ago, from just meeting someone, to see her turn into such a leader and someone who I look up to, not just in parenting, but also as a friend. She's, I don't think she explained in detail as well of all the process she's been through.
So I'm wondering what you all think would be important for teachers and prospective teachers to know about the benefits of engaging families. Why is this important?
Two years ago, I had Veronica's son in my first grade classroom. And Veronica every single day would walk Jose to the class, stand at the door and wave goodbye, give him a kiss, and then send him to his desk. And I didn't know, I felt like I was really welcoming. I'd put on a smiling face and I'd wave or I'd say hola, right? We can all say something, but I thought that was enough. And I would stand there and wave back, and there she sent her first grader off to me and trusted me. And that was as far as she could come. And now, through our group, and through a lot of different efforts, not just this group, but the confidence that it's come from me to know that I can approach any parent and I can grab their hand or I can grab their arm and I can welcome them no matter what position I am in the building. And then I think for all of us, the different confidence levels that we have to approach one another. Yeah.
I'll talk more. I think along what I said before, being important for, like she was saying, for any parent, even if there's not a language barrier, people are shy, people are embarrassed for what their kids come to school in or what their kids don't have, or people are just maybe feel like they don't want to do it, and I feel like teachers, it would be to break down that wall, that initial, come on into the classroom, or that will give their kids a better education, because if the parents are more involved, everybody knows that. If your parents are more involved coming to school, they're seeing what's going on, then they can help their students, with whether it's homework or making sure they turn things in because something was due here or there. So I think that's important for teachers to know. They know that, I'm sure, but sometimes you forget, and this kind of group is the same thing. That's something that we talk about. If we are trying to, like we have these wolf pack nights that we've been doing, these family fun nights, and teacher involvement is really important with those two, because kids get so excited when they're teachers somewhere. I mean, we had a Chuck E. Cheese fundraiser and there were a couple teachers there. The kids don't care about anything. They'll ignore any game just to go hang out with their teacher. And I mean, so what better way to get them excited about learning is to please their teacher who they love. Right? Is that okay? Sorry. Yes. Please.
Dr. Rios talked about a deficit model that sometimes is the narrative you hear about kids or schools or parent involvement. I want to talk about two different kinds of expertise that I think we're learning about. The parent action team has expertise that we can listen and learn from about how to better involve our families in our schools. And they've helped us get smarter about the outreach efforts that we make. And that expertise is invaluable to us if we would stop and listen, and then do everything we can to respond to the ideas that surface. And then the second expertise is really represented by Veronica's story. We have parents in our classroom communities, in our school communities that have expertise, and we need to find a way to bring that into our school to enrich our educational program for our kids. So as interns, it sounded like you have a 3-2-1 handout. Maybe that's part of the reason why you're here tonight. It's an awfully nice night. But I hope that you're thinking along with us about ways that you can tap into the expertise that exists in your classrooms as you progress into your careers, because there's a richness there if we take the time to reach out for it.
How would you say that things are improving for children in the school? I'm wondering about, in particular, any of the behavioral or climate changes that you have observed over the last bit of time.
You want to take that one?
Sure. The impact of kids for this? Or were you talking? My turn? Okay. Most mornings, I am out front greeting the kids when they come in and arrive off the bus, or sometimes parents drop them off and they come through the front door. And every single morning, you will see them running with enormous smiles on their face into the building. They are so happy to be there. And I think that is a testament of the community that Washington School is.
One of the indicators that we can look at is really some cold hard data about the number of students that are referred for behavioral issues, because we can look at those referrals on a monthly basis and compare the number of referrals that are being processed this year to last year's data. And it's a reduction of about 50 to 65 referrals per month. And that trend started in September of this year, and it has continued right through April, which is the last data we looked at just recently. There are a number of factors that are contributing to that change. But I would include in those factors the different relationship that we're trying to have with our parent community and how that then impacts their kids when they're at school. And John really helped us think about this, because if you do the math, you're talking about perhaps 500 to 600 interactions between school and homes that are negative interactions that have gone away for us from this year to last year. And 500 to 600 is a huge number. And that just has to be a contributing factor to the climate of the school that we're experiencing right now.
So I'm wondering just a couple more questions, and then we'll allow you all to ask us some questions. But what are some of the favorite memories from the last year of us spending time together for any of you as individuals?
Okay. Well, we've done, we sit down in the meetings and we have all these great ideas, and sometimes then they kind of go away or sometimes they don't. But one of them is, we were talking about putting together a book for the school of every family. So kids in the school would go and be able to open this book and look at pictures of themselves and a little story, and like a poster that they made as their family. And it hasn't really come to fruition fully yet, but we're just beginning, as we said. And we started with all of us doing one, or bringing in things that we would do one with. And that was my favorite one, to hear, everybody. And I still think that's a really good idea to do that. It's just hard to.
We have about 10 pages of the book
right,
posted on the
right. So, oh yeah, right. So that's my favorite memory.
There have been some photos up on the screen, actually, of the couple series of meetings that we did. We wanted to use ourselves as a sort of a testing ground, and we knew that we wanted to be able to share stories and elements of our own lives with each other to sort of build the foundation as a core of people who would really know more about one another and so on. And so we each brought in photographs or other sort of quasi-artifacts from home to explain elements of ourselves and what is it that we find important. And we were using these conversations to help inform what questions might come up in home visits or family visits for other folks. And it sort of spawned this notion that, you know, these relationships are not one way. They're two-way relationships, and we really ought to be allowing parents to also learn about us, and it's not just us learning about parents. And so there's now been an effort to write stories about individual staff members from the school to send those home for the parents to be able to read. So we're not just asking, well, tell us about yourselves, but we're also putting ourselves out there as an equal participant in the relationship building piece to share pieces of ourselves.
And as a parent, that's really nice reading about the staff, that secretaries or people that you don't ever really know, just little bits about them, where they came from, their children. I think that's really fun.
Yeah, and that opens a door.
Right. It makes you feel just a little bit closer when you see them in the hallway.
Right.
Other favorite memories or thoughts?
Pues también que hubiera pasado más mejor en verlos conocido a ustedes.
For me, knowing all of you,
Porque antes no los conocía.
because I didn't know any of you before.
Y otra cosa de que pues se portan, que son unas personas muy bien, ojalá que todos fueran así.
And something else would be that they're all great human beings.
Y ojalá que fueran toda la gente fuera así, pero no se puede.
And I wish everyone were like them, but that's not the case.
Y pues yo no tengo nada que decir mal de esto que estamos haciendo nosotros.
And I don't have really anything much to say about what we're doing.
Porque todo está muy bien.
Because everything's
He aprendido
done
muchas
well.
cosas. He aprendido muchas cosas. Y pues mi niña también, yo la que llevo a veces.
I've learned a lot, and my daughter has learned a lot as well.
I think mine's like Miguel's, the relationships. I have a lot of new friends. I knew Ann and Stacy pretty well, but I bet that 2 years ago Veronica would not have thought she would have called me Chica. And Miguel would not have rolled down his window when I was helping kids cross the street at the crosswalk. He would not have rolled his window down and just said good morning or good afternoon or
Gonna scare you.
good job. He startled me. But just feeling that my favorite part is that it's ongoing. It's not one memory, but it's this ongoing relationship that we have and will always have.
Pues a mí me ha gustado estar también con ellos. Y yo siempre les he dicho a ellos, como no sé a veces sus nombres, y es mejor, hola chica, o hi chica. Y ya el director ya sabe español, porque ella dice, hola, buenas tardes. Le digo, ya sabe más el español. Pero me gusta. Ok. Ya me quiero comer.
¿Qué dijo otra vez?
Que ella siempre a las muchachas.
Yeah. So also for me, it's the same kind of like the relationships as well, and how sometimes I don't remember the names, so that's why I tell them it's easier to just say chica. But now even the principal is speaking Spanish, saying hola, good afternoon, things like that.
Pero me da gusto estar aquí en el grupo de ellas y me siento a gusto.
But I'm happy to be part of this group, and I feel really comfortable.
Thank you.
My favorite thing is that, and as a teacher or in education, a lot of time it's all focused on education, and meaning reading, writing. These are the conversations we have, and they're so one-sided. And even in the family visits, a lot of it is still pretty one-sided. We're listening to the parents because we're really trying to be listeners and learn from them. But this is taking it to that next level where we really are embracing the whole idea of reciprocity, and we are sharing and the parents are sharing. And so it really brings us together and builds those relationships a little bit deeper because it's intimate, we're getting to know each other well, and we're taking we're taking away the outside factors of education and thinking about just getting to know each other as humans.
I think one of my favorites was there's another mom who's not here, Basia, and she taught a Mexican dance class to a lot of our kids after school, and she would sit there and she had our kids and a few extra, just uno, dos, tres, back and forth. Couldn't really speak English to a lot of the kids, but taught all these kids a dance that they then did at the school dance with little old man masks and all these, that was really special, this like folk dances. And I thought that was pretty, 2 days a week, she donated her own time to teach that for a month or so. That was fun.
And there was definitely a language barrier because many of the kids didn't speak Spanish and she didn't really speak English.
Right.
And still, it didn't matter at all. It was awesome.
Well, and those classes would not have happened if Stacy and Ann had not asked her to do that. And I think that through this process, they gained each other's trust, and you guys really validated that she had these assets to bring into the school, and you asked her, will you please teach our kids how to dance? You're so great and you know how to do this and our kids would love this. And the whole group has been phenomenal, but I think your leadership, especially coming from parents who have been on the PTO and really embracing our entire school and community and saying we all have things to give and contribute to the school, these two women have definitely been leaders in that process.
So for me, each time I drive home from there for the 40 minutes or 45 minutes it takes me to get home after I leave, I'm just reflecting on the time spent, and every time it's been a positive experience, and in part, large part, because just as this edition, this volume of the journal is trying to do in terms of counter some of the deficit methodology, deficit sort of orientation, this group has embodied the opposite of the deficit approach to engagement. And so this notion of asset orientation comes out also in our meetings. And we're very open and honest about some of the challenges that we have in front of us, including those associated with language, potential, what could be perceived as language barriers. We have slowed down in our cadence. We have paid more attention to one another when we're speaking. We have attempted to try and communicate in ways that maybe we're not accustomed to, and so on. And we have all become richer for it, I think. We can all benefit from slowing down just a little bit. And I think each of us have embraced or acknowledged the reality of the strength and the asset that's included with multilingual capacity and capability. I doubt if there's any of us who didn't wish that we spoke another language better than we did, even those who are rather fluent in more than one language. We're seeing that as an asset. We're seeing each other as assets. And I also feel rather honored and very fortunate to be able to think about the friendships that are developing as a group. So I also have a lot of favorite memories, and I have to tell you there's been more than one tear shed during some of our talks, and Miguel is the master of being able to drop nuggets of wisdom that make you wish that you had your recorder on. I can tell you that right now. But we don't always just sit around and eat pizza, although it seems as though we often do. Next week we will be getting together. As an example, actually Stacy's going to host us at her house where we'll bring our families together for a potluck. And we started our time together in that way, where we brought our families together with an intentional purpose to say, this is more than us. It's more than us, a bunch of folks who are going to meet for a while. We wanted to up the ante a little bit, and we made it more personal. And so we each brought our families, those who were able to make it, and we brought our potluck food and broke bread together and began the process in an awkward way that is always present in new relationships and in new meetings and gatherings. And we stuck with it, and I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of the way that that's happened. And so now after a year, the real progress is happening. And so as we think about the complexity of this, and it is absolutely a commitment, and it's a commitment that every one of you has I would like to say obligation to make personally. I think we are, as educators, or aspiring educators, obligated to consider the assets that every student and all of their families are bringing to the table. And it's been a real honor to be able to authentically experience that with this group. So I'd like to offer it up for any of you. Do you have any questions or comments for the panel as a whole? And just a fair warning, we've got each other's back up here. So you might direct a question at one of us, but if one of us isn't particularly prepared or comfortable answering that question, the rest of us might jump in and support that individual. So don't be surprised if you hear a voice responding that maybe wasn't the person you were trying to get eye contact with. Thank you, Giselle. Gracias. Yes, maybe we should use this mic.
Thank you. Is it working? Okay. I wanted to first thank all of you for sharing your experiences with us tonight and for giving us the opportunity to publish your work to an international audience. Kind of scary, but thank you. I was wondering, what did you find to be the greatest obstacles or challenges that you had in trying to do the work you're doing?
As simple as their schedule, our own schedule. And hey, you give me a mic like that, I'll start singing. So, here he goes. So, ooh, that was really loud. You know, just I'm trying to get everybody together at the same time because we have this and that, but then at the end of the day, generally we were all there every time. I mean, I know I missed one or two, somebody, you know, I mean, because you just can't help it, but because then after you're there, you know, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be here, or I don't want to go because I have this, the dishes, the da-da-da, whatever, and then afterwards it's like, yes, oh, that was great. So that, sometimes it's just yourself is a challenge, you know, I mean, getting motivated to do it, and so, which I think is part of the problem for so many people. So.
I felt every once in a while we'd kind of get a rough spot where we were just kind of stuck, and then John would come up with the perfect question to just change our mind thought and bring stuff around, because it's hard to pry into your lives or to figure out where we're going.
Or how to get other people to want to, or I mean,
John was definitely integral to making the group conversations happen.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I also want to just thank all of you for being here. It's fabulous to hear your stories and your wisdom, and for you to share the great learning with our students and your
our future teachers and the teachers that'll be teaching next door to you, and you're teaching your kids and your grandkids and my kids and my grandkids. And I wonder, there's not a John in every spot, right, to bring that kind of group together. So I'm wondering, here's all of these people that are going to go out and be teachers, and it might just be them in a school trying to plant that seed. What advice would you have for one teacher in a school to try and plant that seed of reaching out to families and trying to start something like this?
Don't give up.
I know, don't give up is right, or just do it. I mean, just do it is the thing. If you build it, they will come. If you do it, parents will. If a teacher, I feel like if, not all parents obviously, but it's like the family visits. If you do that and open that door, I mean, it may just have to be one teacher, but you need somebody, right? And then get more people. But it's just sometimes that one time you go and it'll just start and it'll be the domino effect, right?
Primero,
Firstly,
que tengan mucha amistad con el pueblo,
be very friendly with the community.
y así podrán tener más, ¿cómo se dice? Más logro con
And that way
los,
you have a lot more success
con los papás
with the parents,
y los niños tener más confianza con su
and the
maestro.
children will have more confidence with themselves.
Eso digo yo. No sé.
That's what I would say.
Pues yo diría que
I would say
que los maestros podrían empezar como ella, yo lo entiendo un poco en inglés, como ella dice, para que los niños, desde que los maestros les enseñen algo para que siga la cultura de que los niños no miren diferente a otros.
Okay. So I would want for all the new teachers to implement a culture where we're teaching all about diversity.
Como una clase.
But a specific course on it.
Como una clase que les puedan dar a ellos.
But a course for the teachers, specifically on diversity.
No para los teachers.
Oh, it's
para los niños.
Oh, it would be for the students.
Que los maestros, les pueden enseñar una clase de culturas que que se miren todos igual.
Okay, so it would be a course, it would be a class where the teachers would teach it, teaching about how we're all the same, more on that culture.
Es algo como lo que ella dijo.
Somewhat like what she said.
Para que ahí, pues, se tiene que empezar, uno tiene que hacer su parte como papás, pero los maestros tienen que hacer su parte también como maestros.
Because we have to do our part as parents, but teachers have to do their part as teachers.
Marsha, I love your question, and I think what this group has done maybe represents a way to address that question. We definitely benefit from John's involvement. He's a smart, skilled guy, and I think I would have said the same thing that was said about his ability to jump in when we're stuck. But I think there are a couple of approaches that we use that are applicable to an individual brand new teacher in a new school. I would find an ally. We found allies here, like-minded people that shared some interest in reaching out to our families and involving our families differently. And then we started small. Lorraine's question about what have been some of the challenges, oftentimes when we get stuck, it's because we wish there were 300 other people at our pizza party, right? There aren't. It's a fairly small group and it's having some cool impacts, but we started small and we had some early success. And then that early success gave us confidence to keep going. I think that can be applied to lots of things in life, lots of things in schools, and lots of things for brand new teachers. Find an ally, start with something that's small that you can succeed with, and then build from there. It would have been overwhelming to think about how to entirely restructure parent involvement at Washington School, in some 3-month period. We couldn't do it. We started with a small group, then we started thinking about one event, the back to school night, which is a traditional barbecue. How could we change that just a little bit? Well, we had Basilia teach a dance lesson, and Andrea had a cool idea about basically a treasure hunt that created a different sort of interaction at the event. And so we started small, and I think those 2 or 3 kind of elements would be helpful, even if you feel like you're kind of out there on your own. There's someone else around you that you can team up with and get going.
I was trying to wrap my brain around thinking about being in a new building by myself, maybe not knowing who else is like-minded like me, thinking about what I could do just within what I can control. And I can control what happens in my classroom. And so if I if I realize that I don't have to wait for an all-school event to have a multicultural event, I can host that in the morning before school starts. I could put coffee out and invite families to come in, and they could share about each other's families. I could have a tea party during the middle of the day. I could bring one family a month and recognize that family and let them share, almost like VIP style. Just think small, and it will grow. You will find people that are like-minded. But think about what you can control, and one of the things I've been thinking about since our work started a couple years ago was this idea of hard-to-reach families. They're not hard to reach. You just have to think creatively and think differently about reaching. It's the same old is not going to work anymore. There's a lot of differences and a lot of hurt. There's some hurt. There are families that are hurt, if we want to be honest, that are scarred from the school system or the poverty, just poverty in general, or cultural or language barriers, and we just have to think differently.
Tardes. Can you hear me, yeah? Bueno, Verónica, mi nombre es Verónica, somos tocayas, así es que mucho gusto. Y Miguel, me dio mucho gusto escuchar de ustedes. Yo trabajé muchos años con padres de familia en California, en muchos lados. Y la pregunta que les tengo para ustedes más bien es hablar un poquito sobre la forma en que ustedes ven, porque hablar de lo que se define el proyecto de ser un buen padre. Es un proyecto que no siempre es, por ejemplo, lo que la escuela define lo que es buen padre es una cosa, pero lo que definimos nosotros como latinos es otra cosa, ¿verdad? Y a veces cuando vemos que mis papás trabajaron bien duro, se dedicaron a criar a mí y a mi hermana en las escuelas, pero no siempre estuvieron involucrados en las escuelas, en parte porque vieron que a veces la discriminación, el lenguaje, cómo los vieron como padres inmigrantes, a veces los veían como incapaces de trabajar como padres líderes. Era una cosa invitarlos a que cortaran papel, a que hicieran tamales, y otra cosa muy distinta, papel de liderazgo. Entonces, una pregunta que les tengo a ustedes es, ¿cómo ustedes ven que ese proyecto de raza, de lenguaje, de inmigración, de todo eso afecta a veces cómo los ven como líderes? Y me gustaría que hablaran un poquito sobre a veces si ven ese papel. So one of the things I was sharing is that I think, and maybe this might be a slightly different question for the teachers, but I'm asking sort of the question about how the politics of race, language, and immigration come to factor, how we come to see what it means to be a good parent, and more importantly, even a good parent, a parent leader. So in ways that we invite parents to be a part of decision-making, at a school site. That's something that's really important to me. So there's different ways that we can involve parents, but this idea of the role they play in leadership spaces. And even the construction of family engagement has a very particular history and has particular kinds of ideologies that are rooted in race, class, immigration, et cetera, especially when you're working with the Latino community. So I'm curious in ways that you're considering or thinking about how those politics are coming into play in meeting the relationships that are then built with families, both from its inception, but also over time. Are those questions being asked in these spaces, and if so, how?
Yo también, yo tengo mi trabajo, yo trabajo en el campo.
I also work in the fields.
Yo me tomo un tiempo para la escuela.
And I take some time for school.
Y me tomo tiempo para mis hijos también.
And I take time for my parents, for my children.
Por mis hijos y pues hago lo que puedo, como ella dice, no todos podemos.
I do what I can, but like she said, we can't all do.
Pero se puede tratar.
But we can try.
A lo mejor sus papás de ella no le tocaron la suerte de tener así un lugar como ellos que se preocupan
Maybe your
por la
parents didn't
comunidad.
have as much luck as to have this group where we can talk.
Y es por eso que se está haciendo esto, me imagino, para que no pase como ellas.
But that is why we're creating this, so that we don't have that same role, that same involvement that maybe your parents had.
Si es que entendí bien lo que ella dijo.
If that is what I understood from
Sí
your
entendí
question.
bien lo que dijo, ¿verdad? Sí está bien lo que estoy diciendo.
No, y la pregunta también sería, si ustedes siguen viendo la forma en la relación con padres, con los maestros y con el director del programa, si ustedes tienen la oportunidad de hablar sobre cómo esto va afectando el desarrollo de relaciones o de comunidad, el desarrollo de una comunidad en la escuela, porque veo aquí que está pasando algo muy auténtico y un proyecto que tiene, bueno, para mí sería un proyecto que tiene algo que da promesa para muchas cosas, pero veo que muchas familias en las escuelas, porque trabajé 15 años trabajando con familias, y veía mucho que vivían en miedo, la discriminación era muy evidente, veían que a veces términos de la pobreza, lenguaje, era algo que pasaban era su vida, aunque tenían maestros que querían trabajar con ellos, eso siempre era parte del dilema, del reto de buscar a desarrollar un proyecto. Y la pregunta era, para ustedes, si ven que eso afecta o en qué forma pueden navegar eso o solucionar o platicar sobre cómo la discriminación o otros obstáculos afectan, porque como padres latinos tenemos una realidad muy específica, que vemos que como inmigrantes vemos eso nos pasa, o sea, es parte de nuestra realidad. ¿En qué forma platican y pueden? Eso sería mi
Sí, eso, pero sí te ve lo que dice usted.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
Pero la discriminación nunca se va a acabar en ningún lado.
But discrimination is never going to end anywhere.
Jamás.
Never.
Lo que se tiene que hacer es tratar como ellos están tratando de donde uno vive, la comunidad donde uno vive.
What we have to do is try, like these folks are doing over here.
En la comunidad donde vive, casi pues si no se puede luchar por otra comunidad de perdida a la comunidad de donde uno vive, de ahí otras comunidades pueden agarrar el ejemplo.
And so if this isn't happening in some communities, maybe they can take initiative from what it is happening here.
Porque está difícil, la discriminación nunca se va a acabar.
Because it's a difficult situation, discrimination is never going to end.
De aquí nosotros venimos como trabajadores y a lo mejor nos miran como trabajadores.
We came here as farm workers, but maybe they're going to see us that way too.
Pero poquito a poco podemos mirar que no somos así.
But little by little, they'll see that we're more than that.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Porque está difícil, su pregunta que hizo está muy difícil.
The question you asked is very difficult. It's very hard.
And I won't get too worked up because Veronica's my hero. So I think there's a lot to be said about that question, but I will be completely honest that I think that this group here has been such an authentic experience of really breaking down those barriers of stereotypes. John mentioned earlier that Miguel is like this person I know has brought me to tears more than once with the most profound statements. And one of those, I remember him saying that at this table, meaning our pizza table, you are not the principal and I am not a mechanic. We are all humans. And it's through the end of this year that in this process, it really is a humanizing process. We're not looking at levels of education or our stature in our jobs. What we've learned is that Miguel, as a mechanic, has a whole set of knowledge and strengths-based that I can learn from. Miguel thinks his English isn't very good, but his English is phenomenal, and he is a person that can communicate between and actually bridge and bring many of our families together. And I think that those aspects are not talked about in education a lot. We kind of glaze over a lot, especially in public schools. But I do honestly believe that this group right here, that we have really overcome, and this has been a very open-minded group of looking at people for their assets and really building relationships.
I just want to say one thing that I didn't understand her question, really, except that with his response and what you said. Race, the language, color, whatever, none of that is even that's not an issue in this group. I mean, it's not even something that is considered. We're trying to reach out to our school. So whoever's in our school, doesn't matter who you are or in our community, then that's who it is. I mean, it's not, that's the point, right? I mean, am I getting that? So hopefully that.
But do those issues lie outside this group? Absolutely. I mean, and that's human. Those are humans. We're working on this group, but does that exist in every community in the entire world? It does. But I think that this group has surpassed judgment and is definitely, I mean, like I said, I honestly look at Veronica as, I look up to her, and she's an amazing person. And I would not have got to know her at this deep of a level had it not been for this group.
I would just say that, you know, this notion of cultural humility, as we know, is a journey. And I would say that we're perhaps not publicly, intentionally going there, but we're there. And in terms of, and so here's a photo of one of the experiences when we were sharing family photos and artifacts and discussing about our families of origin and what we hold as values and so on. And the breaking of bread and sharing of stories has been really supportive, I think, in laying at least a groundwork for the early stages of understanding the other. And I think that it's been we have occasionally discussed some of the issues of race and racism and some of the phobias that come around with language and perceived language barriers and so on. This group has not explicitly gone there intentionally. We've dabbled in it a bit, and I think that we're at a place, and we have been for a while, where it's been at least safe enough to acknowledge and contemplate the difference. And I think that it's a really good and smart question and a great reminder for us to think about the underlying elements of race and racism and phobias that are prevalent in all of our systems, including our educational system, and especially when we throw in there the whole power imbalance. We've been trying to have an organic process of minimizing the gap of inequity, at least within this small group. And it's been really nice to see how people have been able to at least conceptualize the other as potentially good, and starting from that point. And so there's really been some elements of this sort of bridging the divide of difference, but it hasn't been necessarily the intention of the group, but it is one slice of a potential byproduct.
Big thank you to the group again for sharing your perspectives with all of us. I had a question specifically based on the comment that our Principal Gutting had with regards to parental support and how traditional parental support might be somewhat different. I was curious as to how that looks like in the school presently. How is it different? And moving ahead from that, what I was also kind of curious about is there's this Chinese proverb which goes something like, you give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, but you teach him how to fish and then he's learned that for life. I was curious as to how those parents are probably being empowered to take this further on from the elementary to middle to high school. Are there any steps that are being taken towards that? So I was curious about both those things, the how and, how might that look in the future? Thank you.
Let me try with one example that I think represents a couple of key pieces. We changed the structure of parent conferences from a late November conference where the report card and student achievement data and grades were really central to those conference conversations, to moving that into October, much earlier in the school year, and then changing the narrative of the conference to help me learn more about your son or daughter so that I can do a better job of teaching them. And I think that represents a couple of things. It represents empowering parents to help us know their children beyond just a letter grade on a report card into a whole child. And the idea for moving the conferences earlier came from our teachers. It was born out of the home visits and really in many respects paralleled how the home visits were constructed. And then to your question about how are some things expanding from our elementary school to middle school or other parts of the district, that adjustment ended up being district-wide. And so the story that was emerging from one elementary school in Mount Vernon got shared and expanded into the other 5 elementary schools. And I don't know, I couldn't tell you that all of the parent conferences had exactly that same kind of format to them, but they were certainly different across the district. I don't know if that answers your question with an example, so if you want to follow up, you're welcome. But
I think one thing that might answer this question a little bit, hopefully, is just the idea of in our school, through John's work and Anne's work as well, this whole idea of what it looks like and sounds like even to be involved is changed. It doesn't, for us at Washington, it doesn't mean that you're there every single day or that you volunteer or that your calendar is signed because you read for 20 minutes. We've moved well beyond that idea of that means you're an involved parent. Now you're an involved parent in many ways, and we can be in your home and we can offer you lots of things, but you can also offer us lots of things. And we know you're working 4 jobs, and I don't really care about the calendar anymore. Just when you're home, can you just read sometimes? And if that's not going to work, then what do you think about us making sure Johnny comes and reads with us in the library for 15 minutes? We'll catch him before school starts and he can eat his breakfast in there. It's really thinking creatively about helping kind of meet together and meet in the middle and changing what it means to, what we think it means to be involved.
I have a question also, but first I'd like to thank all of you for your courage in coming to speak in front of this group and for all the work you have done at Washington School and for sharing your insights with the prospective teachers here and teacher faculty here at at Woodring. My question is, what's next? What's your vision or your hopes? What are your visions or hopes for how this group might evolve?
Well, we've kicked around a lot of visions and hopes, and we have, that's sort of a theme, I suppose. And one is the possibility of this spawning, essentially. So we are one small group. One possibility that we've discussed, and we might be so brave to try out, is that we split up, if you will, and we each take on a role of facilitating similar groups, or we divide in half and start up basically double the number of groups and have multiple parent action teams throughout the school community, and throughout the year have opportunities to bring these various teams together, because we do feel that we are building bridges and making connections that otherwise would not have happened. And it's a journey of the process of trying to make them healthier. And so we've used analogy or metaphor of a network or a fabric or a tapestry of sort of reaching further and beyond ourselves. And if we had multiple groups going on simultaneously that could occasionally come together, that network would grow and thicken. It's going to take there are a lot of challenges associated with that one possibility, but I think we have a more immediate hope of continuing the process that we have going on. We have had some really valued and valuable participants who have had, life has gotten in the way and they haven't been able to attend meetings in a while. And we've tried to be flexible and figure out a time when we can fit everyone's schedule, and it's just not possible. So I think some of us have a hope and dream that we can reconnect with some of those folks who have an interest in engaging in this and even expand this group. One of the concerns about that initial plan that I mentioned about dividing and sort of spawning more similar action groups is that we're not yet ready to dismantle. And so, and yet we also are realists in terms of our own time and what we can do. So the thought of being engaged in more than this group, while it sounds romantically, it sounds lovely, realistically, we know that there are a lot of other commitments for time. What are some other people's thoughts?
Primero, yo solo diría pues como invitar más papás.
First, I'd like to say that maybe
para,
inviting more parents.
Para que sea este grupo más grande.
So that this group can grow.
Pero a veces hay muchos papás que trabajan.
But sometimes there's many parents that work.
O otros como que no conocen el grupo.
But don't know of the group.
Pero es un grupo muy pequeño.
It's a very small group, but
pero estamos muy bien, pero sería mejor si fuera un grupo más grande.
And we're doing very well, but it would be great if we could be a little bit bigger.
Como por mí, yo no trabajo, por eso a lo mejor estoy más en la escuela.
Maybe I'm more involved because I don't work.
Pero hay veces que sí quisiera, pero estoy más ahorita con ellos.
There are times when I would like to be more with them.
Pero sí me gustaría encontrar un trabajo, pero a mí de noche. De noche para no dejar a mis niños.
But an overnight job, so I don't leave my children by themselves.
De no dejar mis niños así cuando vayan a la escuela sin peinar y sin asearse.
So that I don't leave my children by themselves in the morning when they need to get ready for school.
Primero son mis hijos y después el trabajo.
They're first my kids and then my job.
Es todo.
That's all.
We have about 10 more minutes left in the scheduled time together, so perhaps we could hear any other comments. Maybe there are some students who have some curiosities. I love hearing these faculty talk, but you know, we all love hearing ourselves talk. How about some students? Any student questions or wonders or comments?
Mine's a very simple question, but I was wondering if you had a translator at all of
Yo
your
me pregunto
meetings.
que si tienen un intérprete en todas sus juntas.
Had a translator at all of your meetings, or if there were people in the group
O
that
si hay
speak.
miembros en el grupo que hablan.
Well, I'll answer since I'm one of them. But my Spanish is learned, was my major here at Western. So I do my best, but it's not perfect. But Miguel and Veronica will nudge me if they know it's completely off. But we do have our family liaison, Azucena Ramirez, who is amazing. She just couldn't be with us here tonight. And she actually speaks, she's trilingual. She speaks Spanish, English, and Mixteco. So she is a huge asset for our school. But she is usually part of our group. She just had another obligation tonight.
I was just curious, like as individual teachers reaching out to parents, bring them in, we can do some, you know, as much as we can. How are parents, or how can parents be empowered through that experience to move up to, you know, the next grade, the next teacher, or from elementary to middle school, or maybe they have to leave the school? How can they then take those positive experiences that they've had with myself or this group and move into new situations with that sort of feeling of empowerment and wanting to kind of bust through the barriers?
I feel like hopefully, I'm sure I'm loud enough, hopefully that, that just that one teacher who breaks through, like you said, with Veronica, is a perfect example. That one home visit will, it just takes one person, and then I think that gives the parent the confidence to go into the next grade or the next school, or even like, you know, if you're, say they're in third grade and you kind of get that parent to come in a little bit more, just the school. I mean, I know at Washington, just being in the school more often, as Miguel says, then you start to get to know all of the faces. Every teacher, I think, feels more comfortable with you as well, or seeing you. They're like, wait, I know you. And so it's, again, that the theory of just that one, you know, thing, and that will lead to greater things.
I feel like sometimes a teacher just needs to ask a parent to help. Like the parent might not want to come out on their own to help, but if a teacher asks them individually, then they're happy to help when they can.
And then they'll see
and then they
what,
feel
yeah.
needed. If the parent feels like they're being needed and filling a role, then they're happy to help out.
Simple human.
Bien. Y poquito español también le serviría a ella. A little bit of Spanish, they can help. At least to say, hola. And then you guys gonna start a conversation with the parents in there. They say, hola, oh, he speaks Spanish. You know, and
no, but
I think it starts when you are, through your practices, when you're learning to become a teacher, that this is part of what you're learning about, is how valuable it is to connect with our families, and that process is not, it's different for every community you work in. So you need to think outside the box. You need to be innovative. You need to be collaborative with other team members and get to know who your community is, and that's the best way you're going to be able to serve your students and work with your families. But every single community is different, and so there's not one thing that's going to fix it all. I think it really is just getting out there, get to know people, and make them feel comfortable coming into your classroom, and go visit them and find out about them. But I feel like through this process and through the grant in general with in Mount Vernon, this is spreading. All of our teachers, our different schools, we've had the opportunity through this grant to share nationally and statewide. People are interested and want this work that we're doing, and it's lots of people have been doing it, but you just keep sharing how powerful that is. I mean, I just received a couple emails today from teachers who had done family visits and how the great experiences that they felt afterwards. And I think it's those little pieces you start with, and then if you're lucky, you get something as amazing as this group. But just initiate it and then share it with others.
I'm just going to add one thing as a parent. I have a student that's in kindergarten at a different school, and the idea of him going to first grade with a teacher that I don't know is terrifying. I feel like I'm going to have to start over, and I'm a part of the education system. And don't get me wrong, I love his school, and his teachers are fabulous, but because I know what the outreach that's gone on at our school, and I know the efforts that are made to bring parents in, and I don't feel that as a parent at my child's school. I feel like they're very welcoming. My child loves his school, but it's for him, and I don't feel like it's for me. And so I think about that. I would think about that, inviting the parents in, making it about their whole family. The classroom is not about just your first graders or just your third graders. It's everyone's welcome all the time.
We're pushing right up on 7:30, and I did invite folks to be here until 7:30, and they do have a ride to get home, so hand it over to Kristen.
Yes, thank you all so much for coming this evening. Thank you. It's really an honor to have families here tonight. I want to particularly honor the parents because I know that many of us who are here, we're here not because we're interested in higher education or we're interested in teaching, because it's all about the children and it's all about families and community. And I appreciate what John said about cultural humility and how important it is for all of us to be learners. And so thank you all on this panel for sharing your perspectives and your experiences. And I hope that all of us with hungry hearts are listening and holding that in our minds and hearts and spirits as we leave this evening. So with that, we also really value your perspectives, those of you who have been listeners and learners. So if you could please go inside your fabulous program and find your evaluations, and please fill those out. And there are some lovely people walking around here with baskets and pencils who would appreciate your perspectives. And I know that Lorraine Casperson with the Journal for Educational Controversy and SEED, we really appreciate your feedback. It really helps us when we think about future events. So we appreciate that very much. So again, thank you for traveling. Thank you for being here, and have a safe journey home. And we hope to see you all again, and that with that reciprocal relationship. So thank you very much.
Thank you.